Welcome to where I call home. I've been roaming these parts since I was old enough to, well, roam. There isn't a mountain or lake out here that hasn't been explored by either me or my dad. I hope that you get a chance to fall in love with Silver Ridge Peaks. If you're anything like me, it won't take long. Good morning. I hope you got a chance to grab a big breakfast before heading out. There's a lot of ground to cover and it's tough on an empty stomach. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be glad to know that I already have a job for you. While things are quiet, I've been using our outpost to store essential supplies. There is an outpost not far from you that has a small stockpile of bottled water and canned goods. I need you to grab some things from this outpost and ferry them over to one of our observation towers. Don't worry, it's not a long journey. You'll be back to hunting in no time. Before now, we've always just used the lakes for drinking water. But ever since Dad got ill, we've had to put emergency measures in place. We always had emergency supplies, of course. But now we need to account for the possibility that our entire water table is polluted. Dad and I are convinced that it's just the one lake, polluted by the old mining sump next to it. But it's taking forever to get tests done, and it's not worth the chance of someone else getting sick.
Tracks are my go-to source for insight into animals in the reserve. Species, number, mood. You can learn a lot about them before you've ever spotted anything.
This is the place. The supplies should be laid out, ready for you to pick them up. We need at least 6 water bottles, a couple of cans of peaches or whatever we've got there. And there should be a stack of flyers. Grab them too. You got everything? Fantastic. The tower isn't too far to go from here. You found the tower. There's hopefully a free shelf inside, somewhere you can stash the supplies. Oh, you should hang on to a couple of the flyers, though. fantastic. That tower should have everything it needs now. How's the view from up there? It's great to have a hunter like yourself around. I'm grateful for your help with the supplies. I can't wait to hear your Silver Ridge hunting stories. Things have been quiet here recently. But with a hunter of your caliber on the reserve, we're gonna show folks that this is still the best place in the Rockies to hunt. Plus, you're not the only one working with us. We were able to convince Remy Warren to visit, and he's been logging his solo hunts out here for a week or so. He's got a pretty decent following online, so hopefully he's impressed with the reserve. When I proposed using social media to promote the reserve, the board were a little hesitant. But they're giving us a chance to try something new, and I'm sure it'll be worth it. So I suppose you were wondering why I wanted you to grab the flyers, right? There are people who come out here just to visit the lake. I'm fine with people standing on the shore, but until we know exactly what's going on, we need to keep people out of it. I had these flyers made up so we can pin them to our bulletin boards. There's a trail that leads straight to the lake, so I'd like you to pin up one of these flyers at the trailhead. Now, the flyers cover the basics: heavy metals, mining waste, and why to avoid diving in. It's not much, but until we know more, it's all we have. The lake is beautiful, and it's always pulled in visitors. It still looks the same as it ever did. Maybe even better, now that it's calm and peaceful. But now, I can't look at it without seeing what it did to my dad, or what it's doing to the reserve. People discover that we have one contaminated lake and assume that the reserve isn't worth visiting anymore. So far, the local wildlife seems okay, but our bookings for visitors, and especially hunters, have dried up. I have a few contingency plans that I want to try out. I'm a little nervous, though, as our board can be a little conservative. And if my ideas don't involve pulling in hunters, one down, one to go. Keep following the trail to the lake. Take a look at the water. If I hadn't told you, would you suspect that the lake was dangerous? We might not be able to monitor the lake 24/7, but at least now people have been warned. Thanks for taking care of that. It's such a strange feeling to be publicizing the very issue that is hurting us at the moment. I know it's the responsible thing to do, but it still feels slightly like self-sabotage. Our summer season has already started, and normally, this whole area would be covered with hikers. I've only seen a handful of people in the reserve recently. I'm sure that things will pick up eventually. But every day, I'm reminded that my dad was the major driving force behind this place. It's just bad timing, I suppose. We'd had some other issues with one of the board members. But that's in the past. The best thing to do is to keep pushing forward. I've got some big plans to help turn things around. Who knows? Maybe we'll have this place at full strength by the time my dad gets back in the saddle. I'm talking a lot about family stuff, aren't I? I suppose work and family are the same thing for me, you know? I've been watching my dad do this job since I was a kid. Let's change the subject, shall we? I've got a job that I'd like you to take care of. The big plans I mentioned before. One of these plans is a little passion project of mine. We're gonna need some gear. Rappelling gear, actually. I have stashed a few bags at one of the nearby outposts, and I'd like you to head over there and pick them up. When you can. I've been doing adventure sports for about 10 years or so now. It started with bouldering and rock climbing while I was on a high school trip. Last year, I got an accreditation as an instructor, and I was planning on teaching classes. When my dad got ill, I put it on the back burner. But now, I think we have a good opportunity to commit to it. Unfortunately, I'm a little too busy to teach classes just now. But one of my base jumping friends, Sammy, took the same course as me, so she's gonna lead the class instead.
Tracks are my go-to source for insight into animals in the reserve. Species, number, mood. You can learn a lot about them before you've ever spotted anything.
The gear is in here. I packed it into a couple of backpacks. It shouldn't be too heavy. You got everything? There's a good rock face nearby that Sammy can use to teach her beginners. If I recall correctly, you also have some mountain climbing experience. I get it. Those mountain goats aren't easy to catch. There's some good anchoring points at the top of the rock face. If you can get those ropes nice and secure, it'll save Sammy some time and help the class. He was very old-fashioned, though. The patriarch of the Simpkins Electronics Empire. He even forced his vegan animal rights activist son, Timothy, to come with him on hunting trips to Africa. Accused the activist of brainwashing his son. The family reputation around here dropped quite dramatically when my dad caught Timothy drinking and dealing drugs inside the reserve. Simpkins actually used his power on the board to keep my dad quiet. But the next time my dad caught Tim in the reserve, he wasn't just dealing drugs. He had been poaching. Dad called it in without even telling Simpkins Sr. Of course, he was furious. Tried to get my dad fired, actually. But all credit to the board. They stuck with my old man. All these changes I want to make will hopefully account for the loss of the Simpkins' money and influence. This is just the start, too. I'm proposing snowboarding and extreme skiing for the winter. I've got some friends who I'd love to invite over to shoot some videos. Could be fun, don't you think? Anyway, if the rappelling goes well and makes a little money, I think the old folks on the board will start to come around. That looks great. I doubt I could have done a better job myself. Don't let the ropes down. We don't need them getting all tangled up. I really appreciate your help with this one. It's been an uphill battle to get to this point, and I'm disappointed that I can't be there to run the classes myself. If I'm being honest, I have a lot invested in the classes going well. There's still some people on the board who are friends with the old chairman, and it seems pretty clear that they don't like me proposing new ideas. Anyway, I'll let Sammy know that we're good to go. I trust her to take care of it. Hey, so listen. There might be a situation going on at the moment, and I could really use your help to check it out. It's not just gold and silver mining that took place out here. Even more recently, there was a working uranium mine in the area. When the reserve was established, we took responsibility for keeping it safe. Anyway, the old uranium mine is very rarely a problem. But recently, it appears that one of our neighbors, a guy I went to school with actually, has been spotted camping out around the mine. His name's Bobby Joe Jefferson. He's normally just a nuisance, driving his quad bike around and setting up little shooting ranges with tin cans. He makes the deer and turkeys extra skittish, so the hunters hate him. Can you head over to the mine and see what's going on? He's allowed to hike and camp there, but I don't want him going anywhere near the entrance itself.
Tracks are my go-to source for insight into animals in the reserve. Species, number, mood. You can learn a lot about them before you've ever spotted anything.
Okay, first things first. Let's make sure that the mine itself is still secure. A trail camera? I've used these for work and for hunting before. This one shouldn't be here, though. We don't want hunters so close to the mine. Grab the camera. Another trail camera. Bobby Joe doesn't have a permit to hunt here. Is he poaching? This looks intact, at least. That's gotta be a good sign. I don't really understand what's
Hopefully
going on
that's
with
the last
cameras,
one.
But at
Pick
least
him up
the
and I'll put him in
entrance
our
is
lost
secure.
and found when I can take him from
Let's
you.
go find his camp, shall we? It was actually Remy that called this one in. He doesn't know who Bobby Joe is, but I knew who it was as soon as Remy described him. That looks like his camp. Any sign of him? Rifle cartridges. That's not good news. Binoculars. Maybe he was hunting. That's our sign. Pick it up, would you? Secret uranium mining. Government conspiracy? I'll be honest. I never credited Bobby Joe with this much imagination in high school. Replant the sign, and we're done here for now. A journal? Maybe this'll show us why he's out here. You know what makes this extra weird? He actually has done some detective work. The sign's back up? Great. This mine has never been a problem before, but let's not take any chances. Me and my dad have been dealing with Bobby Joe for years, but this is new. I know he's a nuisance, but I always felt sorry for him. He had a pretty tough upbringing. I don't want to call the police, but I have to. He's armed and known for making poor choices. It would appear that it's not just the neighbors that are making questionable calls today. Sometimes folks from the city will drive out here to get away from work or their personal lives or whatever happens to be bothering them. The problem is that sometimes, quite often actually, people wander into the wilderness without a clue of how to survive if things go wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. And based on a couple of phone calls I've had from the hospital today, I think that someone has made a mess and could use some help. I was going to check in on them myself, but I need to coordinate with the police on this Bobby Joe thing. And you're already really close by. Can you head over to the campgrounds nearby and check in on them? The phone calls were sporadic at best. As far as I can tell, this professional yoga and meditation expert has led a group of accountants from Denver into the wilderness on... That's weird. I expected a lot more activity here. They said they were bringing 20 people. Where is everyone? Is the leader in her tent? She goes by Jem. Jem Bodden. Can you hear the phones ringing? I guess we know where she hid them then. The accountants have left. I'm going to send someone to make sure they got back to their cars safely. This is an absolute disaster. A bunch of poisoned accountants and a lone woman climbing a non-specific mountain. Next time someone tries to run a retreat out here, I'm gonna make them hire a professional guide.
This is exactly the sort of thing I find myself fighting uphill against. It's hard to get going when stuff like this keeps... Okay, first things first. We need to figure out where Bodden's gone. I'll try to reach some of the accountants back at the hospital. Maybe they can help. I get the distinct feeling that she hasn't packed hiking boots or proper equipment for a climb. Maybe she'll turn back soon. I'll let you know if I hear anything, okay?